Have you ever wondered how you can unlock new opportunities and knowledge that can truly change your journey as an African immigrant? Then, you're in the right place. Welcome to the AIM Expert series, where we bring you insightful sessions, packed with practical strategies from top experts on topics that matter most to you. So, if you're looking to grow your career or understand the US system, then grab a chair and don't go anywhere. Now, let's get started on today's session.
All right, recording is in progress now. So, thank you all for being here. Welcome everyone to another Masterclass series. We're pretty excited about this one. We have an incredible facilitator, a knowledge partner to drive today's topic, and Doreen is going to take us through this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and, because of time, just pass the ball to her so she can go ahead and get started. But before we start, please, I want to do our normal disclaimer. Everything our expert shares is a product of their expertise and knowledge and experience. Still do your due diligence if you're going to make any decisions. We will not be held liable for any outcomes. It's important that we say that as a disclaimer. And also, you can also save your questions towards the end. She will take questions if you have questions. But I'm excited about this session. It's going to be packed, and we'll also be able to get the replay a few days after. Next, at some point next week, we'll get the replays for today. So without further ado, please join me. Welcome Doreen Ababiaka to do our
Yeah,
presentation. Did I say properly?
yeah, you
I
tried.
tried.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I promise this is going to be worth your time. So today I'm going to be talking about the ROI of you building a personal brand that opens doors, unlocks opportunities, and pays dividends. But first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Doreen Ababiaka. I am an influence and presence strategist, and I help professionals, organizations, and leaders convert their brands into presence, trust, and influence that turns into economic advantages, such as promotions, opportunities, and access. We often, it's very interesting. This topic is also very personal to me because it is also a journey that I have gone on myself. It's amazing. We often measure our assets by, we often think of our assets as things we can measure, things like stocks, real estate, 401k, I don't know, gold. But what if your greatest appreciating asset isn't any of those things? In today's world, your greatest appreciating asset is you. It's your reputation, it's your visibility, and it's your name. In 2025, if you are not building a personal brand, you are really losing out, because in this era of economic instability, geopolitical issues, and everything, the only thing at the end of the day you can really fall back on and depend on is you and your brand. And yet, most of us spend more time managing our iPhone storage than actually managing our brand equity. So let's get right into it. I remember when I got my first, will I say, real grown-up adult job at the happiest place on earth. You can kind of guess where that is. I mean, I was very excited. And like most people, I thought you just work hard, you do what you're supposed to, and automatically you're going to be recognized, and you're going to climb and things like that. But I realized something, very fundamental, which changed the entire way that I think of leadership. Because I saw a lot of quietly brilliant people. I saw a lot of brilliant, professionals, quiet thinkers, immigrants, introverts, people who are very competent, in their work. But I saw them just like overlooked and sidelined. And I saw people who maybe were not so technically competent per se become leaders, and I saw people follow them, and I realized that maybe there was something in their tone or the way they communicated or the way they presented themselves that made it just easy for people to naturally follow them and give them opportunities. And like I said, that totally changed the way I thought of things, because a lot of these people who were very credible and hardworking and did all the right things, it wasn't that they lacked skill. It's just that they were not able to translate that credibility into felt authority, right? Because we are emotional beings and people act on what they feel, not what is actually happening. And so I quickly discovered that your hard work and maybe your credibility will get you into the room, but your brand determines whether the room listened. And it kind of shifted the way I thought about success and the way I thought about leadership. And I remember I had this really great mentor who would teach me a lot of things, who would point out a lot of things to me. And it just really began the journey and the foundation of what my work currently is right now. So, and this is backed up by fact, because according to LinkedIn, it says 85% of opportunities, promotions, partnerships, collaborations come through reputation and direct application. I mean, in this world that we're seeing right now, we know that, in the world of where hundreds and thousands of people are just getting laid off, we know that your hard work is not what is going to determine your success. So tonight, I want to explore with you how to design your brand intentionally and make your name work for you. But before we start, we're getting to it. We're going to do a little exercise per se. So I want everyone who is here right now to kind of type into the chat like the first 3 words that come to mind when you think of how your colleagues or friends would describe you, basically. So what are the first 3 words that you would think of? Helpful, executioner, excellent, go-getter. Yes, I see someone says helpful, smart leader. Awesome, awesome. That is awesome, and those are great things to be known for. So it goes to show that you do have a brand, right? So we all know we have a brand. The issue now is it something that you're building intentionally or something that you're just building passively? Someone says energetic, resourceful, dependable. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Good stuff. So here's the thing. What if your name could open doors for you before you actually arrive? What if you could attract opportunities that align with your goals, not by chance, but by design? And that is the ROI of you, your return on investment in intentionally investing in how you're seen, how you're remembered, and how you are trusted. So what are we going to talk about today? Today, we are going to talk about 3 major things, 4 major things. what a brand really is and what it is not, the 4 pillars that make it work, how to turn that and how to turn that influence into real opportunities and access. Because at the end of the day, your resume might get you in the door, but it's your reputation that will open that door and keep that door open for years and years and years to come. So let's talk a little bit about personal branding. What is a personal brand? Jeff Bezos famously described personal branding as what people say about you when you leave the room. And that's true, that could be intentional, but it could also be accidental. So I define personal branding, I take it a step further, and I describe it as, it's the strategic aligning of who you choose to be with how others experience you. It's managing that delicate tension between authenticity and aspiration. It's a system of consistent signals that compounds over time, and let's be honest, for most of us immigrants, for most of us, especially first generational immigrants, I mean, hard work is not the issue. Like, credibility is not the issue. Most of us are extremely credible. We have, certifications up to the wazoo. We have, so we are extremely credible. But I find that a lot of times our issue is not effort, it's visibility. We do the work, but sometimes it's kind of hard to get the market to recognize it. And, we build the skill, but not the signals that help people appreciate those skills, and I call it the invisibility gap. It's a branding issue. And most of the time, that's the gap that determines the progress you make in life, your access, and a lot of times even your compensation. Because in the kind of world we live in right now, perception is the market value is the market price of your value. So perception is very, very important. And if you don't determine it, if you don't set the market price of your value, most likely people are going to undervalue it. I recently worked with a very, very competent project manager. She was very competent. She was very skilled. She did her work, but she was complaining to me. She said, I don't know, I'm doing my work, I'm doing all the right things, but somehow I just keep getting overlooked, And when we looked into it a little bit closer, we found out that she was very visible in execution, but she was invisible in leadership. Sometimes a lot of people don't realize that being credible and being good at your job doesn't necessarily translate into leadership roles. So we went to work on her personal brand. We reframed the way she talked about her work. Instead of just talking about her work based on the things that she did, she was able to talk about her work from the standpoint and from the frame of the value she provided. We were able to clarify her message, refine both her physical and her digital presence. And 6 months later, she was assigned and leading a major client, a major client project. So with more and had more visibility and more influence in her organization. It's not that what she was doing changed. The only thing that changed was how people perceived what she was doing, and it changed everything. And one thing a lot of people find very difficult to accept is that sometimes the way people perceive you is even more important than what you actually are. Let's just take a moment to take that in. That's just sometimes quite difficult for people to just accept. So, in that sense, so the 4 pillars of personal branding that we want to talk about are made up of number 1, choice, alignment, consistency, and co-creation. When these 4 pillars align, your reputation just becomes self-sustaining. You stop chasing credibility, and it eventually just starts to compound on its own after time. The first of those pillars is choice. And with my definition of personal branding, the idea of choice is very, very important. Everybody who is successful and has a big brand has a very strong identity, right, attached to that brand. So the idea of choice, because the truth is we all have a brand, right? So the issue is whether you're curating it intentionally or you're just doing it unconsciously. Us have a brand that we're building either consciously or unconsciously. But for me, the choice part of it is very, very important, you know? And some questions you should ask yourself are, who am I choosing to become? What emotions or energy do I want people to associate with me? When people describe me, what 2 or 3 themes naturally come up? One of the earliest lessons that I personally had about personal branding was in elementary school. I used to read these series of books. I don't know if anybody remembers or anybody else read them. They were a series of books written by an author called Enid Blyton. And she had these, and there was this story about this little girl, right? So in her class, it was in her class, they regularly gave off prizes for people who were if you were the smartest or if you were they gave out prizes for different things. And she was getting upset, so she came home and she told her mom, I have never gotten a prize for anything. I'm not good at anything. So I'm never going to get a prize. And her mom said, well, why don't you pick something that you're going to be good at and perfect it and then become known for that thing. So they thought about it and they said, well, why don't you become known as, why don't you become the neatest person in class, like the cleanest and the neatest person? So she began to, pay attention to how she groomed herself, made sure her clothes were always very clean, very neat, pressed, and I remember there was this particular thing where they talked about, washing behind her ears, like she made sure she washed behind her ears and behind her ears were clean, which up till now, honestly, that thing stuck with me so much that I always wash behind my ears. I don't know if it's a thing. But and eventually she built that reputation of being the cleanest and neatest girl in her class. And eventually she won a prize for being the neatest and cleanest girl in her class. So that's opened my eyes to something. The fact that you can intentionally choose who you want to become. And then you can consistently, right, build a reputation around that by doing the things that will make you become that person. So for me, I realized then, even at that early age, that branding was an intentional thing. You hear a lot of people just say, oh, well, that's just who I am. That's how I am. Personally, I don't believe in any such thing. I believe our brains are flexible. You can stretch yourself. Obviously, we all have our core personalities and core values and things, which we should. You shouldn't do anything that goes against your core values or things that you personally believe in. But I don't believe in fixed personalities. I think, your personality, you can grow, you can evolve, you can stretch, you can change. You can decide tomorrow, I want to be this person. And that's it. You can go ahead and become that person. So that's one of the first things that is very important to me when it comes to personal branding. It's the choice of choosing who you actually want to be and then strategically building signals to go with that. So it could be some of the things people could describe you as. It could be a phrase that you normally use. And when people hear that, they're like, oh, yes, that's. It could be a recurring theme in your work, or it could be a symbolic habit, that people know you for. Let's look at some people with famous personal brands that we know, right? So here's Oprah. Oprah is just Oprah. We barely even remember her last name. When you say the word Oprah, people know exactly who you're talking about. Oprah is known for empathy, a lot of empathy, being able to get information out of people that people might not necessarily want to share. And that's because she looks at things from their perspective. She makes them feel comfortable. So she's known as that person. When we think of someone like Barack Obama, beautiful orator, he's known, we think of hope. We think of, he built his whole entire platform on hope and, the audacity of hope and aspiration and things like that. So that when people think of you, you want them to think about specific and things or attributes that they can assign to you. Because people follow trust, people follow conviction. And the goal here is not perfection, but clarity. Now, the second part of this is alignment. So it's bridging authenticity and aspirations. Authenticity is a very, how will I put it? It's a very tricky thing because I personally, I coach my clients. I don't believe in bringing your whole self everywhere, especially in high stakes situation or maybe like a corporate environment or work, right? Because your brand must be real enough to be trusted, but it must also be aspirational enough to inspire. So the sweet spot is when you can bridge who you're becoming with who you are presently with who you're trying to become. And I call that strategic authenticity. I a big believer in strategic authenticity. You have to make sure your authenticity aligns with your goals, right? And here's the thing. A lot of people, most people, how will I put it? People don't respond to authenticity, right? People respond to the image that you project and how that image makes them feel, right? A lot of people say, oh, well, that's a lot of people will say that's not me. I can't. And my question is always like, how do you know that that's not you? How do you know that you can't grow, you can't evolve? I find that in my line of work, I find that a lot of people use authenticity as a psychological crutch, not to grow, not to evolve, not to improve. And I'm not saying that we are not going to have things that are our core values and our core beliefs. Yes. And even our core personalities. For example, I'm introverted, right? But I don't. I've seen so many people say, "Oh, I can't do that because I'm an introvert." I can't. No, I'm introverted, but I can leverage even my introversion into advantages for myself. Because I'm introverted doesn't mean that I don't like people, I don't like being around people, or I can't go there, I can't network, I can't, talk to people, no. So a lot of people would just say, oh, well, I'm introverted, and use that as a crutch. So we have to be very, very careful with what we are calling authenticity. And you have to look deep down in yourself and decide, is this really, really who I am? Or is this just something I'm using as a crutch so I don't grow, or I don't, achieve what I can, or I can blame the fact that because I'm I'm not this and that and that, then I cannot progress. I recently I recently heard someone say, well, the only people who progress and make it in the corporate world are people who are bullies and insecure people. And I thought, well, that's not true, right? So that is absolutely not true. That is just a story you have told yourself so that you don't do the things that you probably need to do to advance. You've told yourself that, okay, everybody else is a bully and an insecure person. I'm not. So therefore I can just hold that as a crutch and blame that on the reason why I can't achieve certain goals or do certain things. So the idea is that alignment creates influence. And you want to say, this is who I am, this is who I want to become, and this is who I'm choosing to become on purpose. And those things kind of merge together and give you your form of strategic authenticity. Ask yourself questions like, does how I am showing up today serve who I'm becoming tomorrow, right? If the way you are showing up is not serving you, it's not serving who you're trying to become, then obviously you need to reassess, and then you need to make changes. Because who you are needs to be serving you. It needs to be helping you move forward. It needs to be helping you achieve your goals. The next signal we're going to talk about is consistency. And it's a signal that compounds over time. You need to ask yourself, am I consistent enough over time that people know what to expect from me? And now the consistency thing is one of the biggest issues I see, besides the identity thing, is one of the biggest issues I see when it comes to people building their personal brand. Because a brand is not built on one-time grand gestures, right? It is built on patterns. Every interaction, every word, every follow-up, every point of contact with people is a deposit into your trust account, right? And one thing you have to realize is, there's nothing the human brain hates more than inconsistency and uncertainty. A brand is not built on a single act or a single performance. No, it's built on pattern recognition, right? Because we as humans are wired to trust predictability, right? Think about it. When you go into a place, or even unconsciously, right? You go into maybe a store, you go into a place, your brain is unconsciously scanning for anything in that environment that does not look predictable, for anything that looks inconsistent, for anything that looks out of place, right? Because your brain is trying to say, is this dangerous, or is this dangerous, or is this safe, right? So the same with people. Every time people interact with you, your tone, your timing, follow up, your visual presentation, your body language, even your emotional stability, they are unconsciously asking one question: can I predict what I will get from you, right? Can I predict what's going to happen with you, right? If you look a certain way, people expect you to act that in a way that is consistent with the way you look. If you say you're something, people expect you to look and act in a way that is consistent with what you say you are. So every interaction you have with people is an investment into how people are going to perceive you, or how you're going to remember it. If the answer is yes, and how you look is what people think you, then you build credibility. If the answer is no, then you build cognitive friction, something called cognitive friction. And that will make you lose your influence, right? So people experience things through patterns. People look at things. Our brains take shortcuts. And one of the things I tell people is you have to make it easy for people to figure out who you are. You have to make it easy for people to figure out what your goals, what your aspirations, what you're trying to communicate. People don't have time to sit there and analyze you and figure you out. People have a lot of things going on. So you need to understand that you need to act consistently in a way that people can figure you out. There's nothing that dilutes a brand faster than inconsistency, right? Doing things and saying things and then doing the other things. So some of the ways that we dilute our brand by being inconsistent is verbal inconsistencies. You all know it. You know somebody who says one thing but does another thing. People, it erodes your integrity. Behavioral inconsistencies. You're sometimes reliable, sometimes you're not. People don't know people don't know what to expect from you. Visual inconsistency. You say you are one thing, but then when people see you, your visual image does not reinforce that. Your style, your presentation, your even your environment, not just in person, but even digitally. Your headshots, your things like that. It confuses the audience. The only time where like your visual presentation, you might be able to get away with a visual, because I know there are people that are going to be like, oh, what about Steve Jobs? What about you? Is when you have a reputation that you have built that is so strong that goes ahead of you and speaks before you even enter a room, right? When that reputation is so strong and that brand is so strong, then it can overcome even things like maybe visual presentation. But until you have that brand, you have to understand that those things are very, very, very important, because people will look at you, and like I told you, our brain likes to take shortcuts. So in 7 seconds, that's all it takes for people to look at you and build an impression off of what they see. And I tell you, people will believe what they see even more than what they think or what they feel, right? Because you have so many instances where you see something and your mind is telling you, well, this thing doesn't feel right. But because, you're looking at it, right? They say a picture is worth a thousand words. You're like, well, because if it looks like a dog, it quacks like a dog, it walks like a dog, it must be a dog. And usually that's how people tend to see things. So your message inconsistencies, in your branding, you say, well, we do this, but you're doing different things. Every day you keep on changing whatever it is that you stand for. Even your emotional inconsistencies, like, today you're calm, tomorrow you are exploding, next tomorrow people don't know what to expect from you. They can't tell what your temperament really is. So we have to realize these are just all some of the areas where inconsistencies are going to dilute your brand. Follow-up inconsistencies. You tell people you're going to follow up, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. You don't do that. All those things, unconsciously, people are taking them in, and people are using those things to build a pattern around you that tells people who you are, right? So that's why for a lot of people, it's very hard for them to realize that who they think they are is not what people think they are, right? Because people have already built the stories over all these different areas. And let's realize that the goal here is not to be perfect. Nobody's telling you to be a perfect human being. We are not perfect. Nobody's perfect. but the goal is to be intentional about it. The next area is co-creation, inviting others into your story. You have to realize that your brand is not just all about what you do. It's not just about what you mean, it's also about what people remember. A lot of times people take so much time in thinking about what they're going to do, what they're going to say, and how they're going to, without thinking about how how people on the other side are going to receive it. So questions you ask yourself: what story am I making it easy for others to tell about me? What do people say about me when I'm not in the room? And does it match what I believe? When people need a certain type of insight, energy, or stability, am I the ones that they think about? What you do is objective, but how it's perceived is relational. You have to think about what you're doing and how it's going to be perceived on the other end. When I say this, how are people going to take that? When I do this, how are people? And it's not to say that you live your life entirely, because I know there are people that go out there saying, I don't care what other people think about me. I just do my own thing. That's not entirely true, because unless you live on an island by yourself, or you have figured out a way to make money from your basement by yourself without interacting with any other person, please, and if please you have figured that out, please holler at me after this presentation, because I want to learn too. But the truth is that for most of us, at some point, we are going to interact with other people, and our success and our experiences in life is going to be determined by the way we relate to other people, right? I recently was talking to someone who was just one of the 14,000 people laid off, I think 2 weeks ago on Amazon. And, it was so devastating, because she said it's unimaginable that she felt a little helpless, because it's like so much of your life is just dependent on the decision of someone else. And yeah, we might say it's the corporation that laid her out, but a corporation is not a person. A corporation is made up of people. So there's somebody there who is saying, well, yeah, this person can go, or yeah, it's this person, right? So there are people behind those decisions. And so a lot of times your success might boils down to the perception and the decision of somebody else. So we are not isolated. So we have to always take that into account as well. We have to always consider how the people on the other end are receiving what we're doing, and how they're experiencing us, and how they're experiencing our actions, and plan for the reactions of those people, right? And plan for how people are going to receive it. Your intent is data, but the perception is narrative. And that perception too, comes from different things: people's opinions, experiences, biases, and all that. But your influence lives in that intersection of your ability to not only control your action, determine your actions, but perceive how other people are going to receive it, and then adjust accordingly, according to how it how it suits your goals, or how it moves your goals forward. So you think about, your actions, your behaviors, your communication choices. Act with clarity of purpose. Know the signals that you are sending to others. A lot of people are shocked, when they feel like people don't receive them the way they want them to receive, but then they are not conscious of the signals that they are sending to others. How you express it, your tone, your timing, your body language, how you design those things, make your delivery consistent with your message. Stop confusing people. Your story, how it's framed, context, narrative. Try to provide people with as much context as possible. Like I told you, people cannot, they can't read your mind. They don't have time to figure you out, right? If you're somebody who is normally bubbly, and all of a sudden you become quiet, the people are, if you give people a vacuum, they're going to fill it with their own stories. They're going to make up the stories. You're somebody who is bubbly, for instance, and then all of a sudden you become quiet. Obviously, people are going to make up their own stories. Is he upset? Is he annoyed? Is he, what's going on with him? Why, they're going to fill in the blanks themselves. So what you really want to avoid is allowing people to fill in the blanks with their own narrative. If you need a moment, just tell people, well, I just need a moment. I'm thinking of something. And, let people know what's going on. Give them as much context as possible so they are not filling in the blanks themselves. Always ask yourself, what story am I making it easy for others to tell about me? I tell people all the time, I tell my clients, I tell people I coach, your job is to make it easy for other people to understand you and your intentions at all time. Your tone, your timing, your visual signals must always match your verbal message, right? You don't want to be saying yes, but everything in your body is saying no. You want people to think of you as an authority figure, but when you present yourself, you look nothing like that. You want people to think of you as friendly and open, but everything about your body language and the signals that you're sending is sending a message of a person who is closed off. So you always want to think about all those type of things. You want to become intentional about the impressions that you're leaving, not by performing, not by being fake, for a lot of things that most regular, simple-minded people call fake. People who are very intentional call it strategy, right? So sometimes you just have to play the game that needs to be played. I see people complain from morning till night about unfairness and injustice and why am I not being promoted? And sometimes it's like, look, you just have to put your head down and realize what's happening here, what's happening, and understand like the game that's being played and play the game. And some people think because they're not playing the game, they are not participating, but you're participating just by being alive, just by being on earth. You are a participant. And nobody asked for your permission to be a participant in this game, but you are a participant. So whether you play it intentionally or you play it passively, you are still playing the game in one form or the other. So some of the core questions to ask yourself, like I said, what do people say about me when I'm not in the room? Does it match who I believe I am? So at this point, the question isn't if you have a personal brand, as you already do. The question is, are you managing it or are you letting the market define it for you? And I have come to the end of my presentation, and I just wanted to know, does anyone have any questions or?
Thank you so much, Doreen. That was incredible. Thank you for that presentation. Please, if you have questions, you can feel free to come off mute and ask your question, or you can use the chat as well. So time for questions.
Yes. So can I come in, Amdi?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So yeah, nice presentation. Just like you said, the progress always depend on the message that we communicate to people unconsciously.
Yeah.
Nice presentation. Lots of
Thank you.
insight to go away. But on a lighter note, you didn't pronounce your name much better than the way Inamdi pronounced it. So the difference,
After giving me a
they
hard
say
time,
is
right?
zero. Yeah, they say the difference is difference of how do they say it. So the correct pronunciation is Agbabiaka,
Yeah.
So,
I know that
yeah,
Agbabiaka,
but
but
what I heard from you was not different from what Inamdi pronounced. So okay, that was on a very lighter note. Good presentation. Thanks for coming around. A lot of nuggets to go away with, and that's it. And thanks Inamdi and him for always coming up with these sound bites. 1 hour it goes a long way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I know that that was a lot of information in a very short amount of time, because even each of those segments is a lot, right? Like I go over even each of those segments and it takes, even weeks, So I understand that that was a lot of information in a very short time.
All right. I have a question in the chat. There is, how do people choose if they are still evolving or becoming?
Um, I think we're all, first of all, I think we're all constantly evolving, right? There were so many things that maybe even 6 months ago I thought, well, this is it, this is what I believe, and then 6 months later I'm like, well, um, maybe not so much. So I think we should always just give ourselves that grace to know that we are constantly evolving. Nothing is set in stone, right? We're constantly growing, we're constantly evolving. Um, but at the same time, there are times that you feel like I am maybe the percentage, you are at least 70% of who you think you are. And a lot of that also comes from feedback, right? When you hear people start describing you in the way that you want, that you have intentionally curated yourself to be, and you hear people start saying those things, and you hear people start describing you in that manner, and you hear people start responding to you in the way that you want people to respond to you, then you know that you're further along, right, than not. I don't think you ever fully just become, right? Because
Yeah.
we're always evolving. But at least you know that, okay, well, I'm in that perception range, right?
All right.
I
Thank
hope I
you.
hope
And
I hope I answered the question. I think
yeah,
somebody has
that's
their hand up here.
yeah. Ife, please go ahead. Is that
Yes,
Ife?
thank you.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
sir.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, madam. Thank you, Dr. Mandy, for the presentation. That was very impactful. So my question is this. Um, so what are what are the pointers to us as individuals? How do we know if we are already getting a grasp or managing our personal brand, or are we just letting the market define us? So, so how do we know if we're ahead of the curve? Your last comment did, I believe, answered some of those questions already. But then, how do we know if we're already ahead of the curve, or if we are catching up or dancing to the music of the market, for example, in terms of personal branding?
Okay. I totally understand your question. And one of the first things I do when I work with people is I ask them some simple questions. And one of those questions is, what is your goal? Right? Because any kind of action without direction is kind of chaos. So I ask them, what is your goal? So to answer that question, a lot of that will be determined by your goals, your personal goals, and what you're trying to achieve. There's no one size fits all. So what you're trying to achieve might be completely different from what another person is trying to achieve. So when you're able, and this is the problem, a lot of people don't even know what they want. They don't know what they actually want, right? So that's the first step. You have to define what you actually want. And then when you define what you actually want and you say, well, then what do I have to do? How do I have to brand myself in order to achieve what this thing that I actually want, right? So if you are just letting the market define you, or if you are defining it yourself, when your actions are not leading you to those goals, right? Do you kind of understand what I'm saying? So if you are like, even in your organization, right? Even within an organization, you have a brand, right? And you're going to be quickly, unfortunately, that's how we operate as people. It's easier for us to just put people in a bubble or put people and you're going to be put in a category, right? And so you have to look at those things and say, where am I now? What category have people put me in versus the category that I want to be? And if those two things are not aligning, then you know that you're just letting the market define you, right? You're letting the market put you in what category they choose to put you. And they didn't just make up that category. They made that category, they made it up based on the consistent signals that you're sending out. Does it kind of make sense? Do you kind of understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's so look at your goals and see where am I, right? Are people responding to me in terms of the goals that I'm trying to achieve? And if that's not it, then you need to think about, then you realize that the market is defining you as opposed to you telling the market how to define you, because people will treat you based on the way they perceive you. And the way they perceive you is based upon how you design yourself intentionally for them to perceive you.
Okay. My thing is, my follow-up question is this. Sorry, 1 second. Is this, I mean, so if you find yourself in a situation where you're getting positive feedback, for example, just like you mentioned.
Yes.
How then would I be able to tell if that positive feedback is by virtue of, say, time or, market definition and pressure? Or is it by positive feedback of me positioning myself to be what I want to see myself as, right? So the thing now is this: how do I know when I'm getting late? The indication. How do I know if I'm the one managing it, or if the market is the one defining it? Because yes, we can see some positive feedback, but then am I late to the game, or is it just materialization of positioning yourself, for where you want to be, things like that? So,
first of all, we're always positioning ourselves. Whether it's, I know Dr. Namdi is already looking at time. That's why I'm trying to hurry.
Oh my bad.
I know we're always positioning ourselves, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally. For example, let me give you an example. Someone told me recently, she said, well, two people told me that I'm aggressive in a meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the meetings at work. And my question to her was, this two, okay, right? People are always going to have feedback for you. People are always going to have a perception of you. But my question to her was, are these two people that are instrumental in your success in this environment? Are these two people that matter? Are these two people that have influence over whether you achieve your goals or not? And she said yes. And I said, well, if that's the case, then you have to intentionally take away the perception they have of you, that aggressive perception they have of you. You have to work on it, right? So that's the issue. You will know if you are intentionally designing it by your actions. You will know, are you intentionally or just subconsciously doing things? When you are going to do something, do you prepare? Do you think about, oh, if I do this, how people, I'm not saying that you should nickel and dime everything, but if I do this, how are people going to react to it? Are you getting the reaction that you want from people? And you will know yourself if you are intentionally or unintentionally designing that image. And you can design it and a good image unintentionally, just by being a good person. But is that getting you to where you want to be? Right? Some people are naturally charismatic by nature. So people just like them. People give them things. People promote them. They don't try so hard. Right? Well, other people that will see that, okay, well, I'm not naturally just so charismatic. So I have to put in more effort, right? Into being charismatic, so you have to know your strengths and your weaknesses and know where you need to put in more effort and where things just happen naturally.
Thank you.
You are very welcome.
All right. Thank you. We do have one question in the chat, so please can you take maybe 30 seconds to answer this one from ECH. As a global business owner, my biggest trouble is staying consistent with my branding because my clients and audience are in different time zones. How do I manage brand consistency on an international scale? And what strategies do I use to maintain a strong brand presence? So I don't know how much you can answer in 30 seconds, but I would Definitely recommend more conversations continue after this, 'cause I feel like that's a big one. But go ahead and
Yeah. With that person, I would actually love if we can, have a conversation afterwards and maybe talk a little bit more, but I'm gonna 30 seconds. So the thing is that there are going to be core things about your brand, like core things, just like I told you about Obama and Oprah. They are just core values. Their brand is hope and things. So they are core values that translate everywhere. But if you are dealing with different markets, with different cultures, and different things that will work in one culture will not work in other things. So you are going to have to become all things to all people, right? You're going to have to understand the different cultures, the different environments that you're operating in, and adjust yourself to fit those different environments. But this does not change your core values, the core things you stand for that translate across all cultures, whether that is great service, whether that is, whatever it is in your business that is so important to you, hold on to those. But for the little nuances, perception, presentation, communication, and things like that, you are going to have to adapt it to different markets. So I don't know. And I would love to talk further with you if you have more questions and things like that. So I think, why is my chat not opening? Yeah. So I guess I can share my information.
yeah, I was gonna say, how can people reach you? I know I put details on how to join the community in the chat, so that's one way. But please, how can they find you? If you can share your personal information or business information so they can locate you
Okay.
and
Yeah.
continue conversations.
Um. Yeah. Should have. Okay, I'm doing that now. Um.
All right, so while we're sharing, please can we virtual hand clap for our knowledge partner for today, Madame Doreen. See, now I'm going to now you're in my head about pronouncing this last name. Awabiaka. Mr. Alu, did I get it? All right. So thank you so much for sharing. This is incredible. Every week we have these incredible sessions with different knowledge partners, and you all do this as a service to the community. So thank you so much for all of the value you share and for all you do within AIM. We're truly grateful. Please, everyone, show us some love. Make sure we reach out if you have additional questions, get her information. And also, I've put some details in the chat on how to join the community platform. Go ahead and do so and give me maybe a couple more minutes and then we'll be out of here. We started a little late, but I'll make sure we're out of here by 1 uh 10 because there's some important information that I want to make sure I share before we leave. Let me now I need to kill your sharing. Oh, can
Okay,
you
no
stop?
problem.
Yeah, I can stop sharing so I can quickly share. I don't know why the share screen disappeared from my. There we go, and share window. All right. So quickly, so next week, we have Letitia is going to be taking next week's session on mental health. Is it spiritual or mental? Very exciting topic. We're looking forward to her. The last session she had was very powerful, was incredible. So let's spread the word, let everyone else know about this session. Um, Now we started a campaign this week, and next year, one of the big things that we're doing is we're launching cohort-based trainings, and we're looking to serve 500 African immigrants next year through our Catalyst programs, and they'll focus on our core pillars. So it's going to be new immigrant success, people that have been here shorter than 5 years and are still trying to navigate, making sure they have a nice soft landing. That's one pillar that we're going to focus on. The second pillar is for founders, people who are looking to take idea to business and get off the ground. This foundational stages for starting business. We want to mentor, we want to create cohorts that will serve that group. The next group is, career pivots, people that are looking. This year was a very economically challenging year. Our knowledge partner kind of mentioned it today a little bit about, you know, the impact of just layoffs and things like that. There were stats about how many, I think, 300,000 Black women lost their jobs this year, and some of those are African, diaspora like ourselves. So many people lost jobs this year, and we're hoping that the economy takes its, has a bounce back going into next year. But we need to be able to pivot, our skills and make changes quickly. So we're looking to do programs to support that group. And lastly, one of our big pillars has been advocacy and policy. We want to inspire the next generation of leaders who want to step up into leadership in different capacities. We don't want to just sit down and be recipients of the laws. We want to be players at the table, and we, at all levels. So we've been having that conversation. We had the advocacy conference a couple of weeks ago, and that was powerful. We did a whole drive on, the elections and that. And so we want to continue to. AIM has always done everything for free. We've never recharged for anything. We don't. We want to continue doing that, but we also know it takes resources to run an organization like this and continue to serve people. And so we are reaching out to everyone to, just as we wrap up the year, this is that giving season, and we want to encourage everybody to give towards helping us drive these changes, these initiatives for next year. Especially as you start preparing for tax season and all of that. We're 501c3 organization, and so it's going to be something that you can also get tax benefits for. And we don't just want you to do it one time, we have opportunities for recurring donations or one-time donations, so we broke it down. You're not limited to these things or this structure, but we kind of wanted to give a structure so you can give you a picture. We're pushing for the monthly donations because it helps us plan and budget and all of those things. We're programming. If you've, I've met like 3 or 4 people in the last week, and everybody asks me the question, when is your next conference? And I'm laughing because it's not next conference. Next conference costs money to plan. But we've built this reputation of we're always doing a conference or something, which is good. And we want to make sure we continue that. And so, but with our Catalyst programs, we want to orchestrate and control the transformation that we get people. And so that's why we want to, again, leverage this giving season and get as many people involved. I'm hoping to create, a circle of at least 100 monthly recurring donors who will help us drive the mission for AIM. I think that will go a long way in helping us be able to reach our goals and serve our people really and create an ecosystem that is strong and make sure that no African, here in the United States has to start from scratch. We have access to resources, have access to information and network to thrive here in the diaspora. So that's our goal. So please, this is the link to donate. I've shared the link on the chat, but this is if you want to scan this code, go ahead and scan it, keep it on your phone, have a conversation with your family, your business partners. But we want you to partner with us as we, build out the future of AIM. So that is my spiel. Please donate. The Bible says you ask and you receive. So I'm asking. So make sure I receive. But thank you all so much for being here. Again, we'll continue every week. Please share, invite somebody for next week's session. Take the link to the community and invite people to join the platform, join AIM. We want to grow the community. We want to grow our reach. We want to be able to serve people and continue to be that platform where voices are elevated. I'm seeing. All right. So that is all I have. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Doreen. Thank you for your time. Doreen is going to be back again, so be on the lookout for her next session. If you enjoy this one, the next time we post that she's coming back, please tell everybody to join. But we're excited as we wrap up the year, and the Masterclass series has been really successful. So tell everyone about what we're doing and the work we're doing. We don't have a huge marketing budget, so it's word of mouth. That's how we get the word out. But thank you all so much, and I think we can go home now. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and our regards to your families.